Welcome to episode 5 of Shane Talks 99. This week, February 12th, 1999. We got 3 flicks to look at today. 2 kind of romantic ones, and then 1 that's just a kiddie flick. So a wide variety of options for us here. I actually made the time to watch all 3 this week, which I wasn't planning on doing. I was only going to watch 2 of them, the 2 rom-coms, or the romantic comedy and the romantic drama. But the third one was on Disney Plus. It was free. It didn't cost me anything. Someday I'll own the DVD because I think I've said last week that my goal is now to own every major studio released in 1999 on DVD, even though it means rebuying some of them that I've sold or moved on to Blu-ray or digital. But yeah, it's just kind of a collection I want. I want them in chronological order, just sitting on my shelf, every movie from 1999 as it was released. So the one that I wasn't planning on watching, we'll just start with it. We'll get it out of the way. Don't really have a lot to say about it. It's a very blah movie. My Favorite Martian. It was a remake of the 1963 television show. I didn't remember it at all. I knew I've seen it, obviously, because I've watched every movie that was released in 99 while I worked at the theater that year. So I didn't really remember it. I remember it being pretty bad. It wasn't as bad as I remember it being. Maybe I'm just not, an angsty 19-year-old anymore that I guess I would have been 18 when that movie came out. Yes, I'm not that guy that does it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little more open to stuff now. It was okay. The cast is great. We got Jeff Daniels in the lead role, and then we got Christopher Lloyd as the Martian, which in the old TV show, the main Martian used the name Martin like they do in this movie, so it kind of just makes you think it's a reboot. Way on at the end of the movie, you find out it's actually just kind of a side sequel. Ray Walston, who played the original Martian / Martin in the TV series, he's in the movie, and while you're watching the movie, you're just like, oh, this is a nice little throwback to the TV show. They gave this older actor a part. Yeah, he plays a FBI or CIA agent or something like that who's on the hunt for the new Martian. But at the end of the movie, spoilers, sorry, it's over 20 years old. You find out that he actually is his character from the first TV show in the 60s. He's just been marooned on Earth without a way to go home. So kind of a cool way to tie that in. I thought that was all right. It did not get good Rotten Tomato scores at all. The critic score for it is a 12%. The audience score is a 30%. Shane's score probably in a 20%. I'm probably right between those two. I didn't like it, didn't hate it. I didn't think it was that good. We do have 2 pretty well-known lead female actresses in the movie. The first one being Elizabeth Hurley. Elizabeth Hurley actually has 3 movies in 1999 that her name will get brought up in this one. She was also in a movie called Ed TV with Matthew McConaughey, which we'll get to, I think, May-ish or something. And then in June, she has a very small cameo in the Austin Powers sequel, The Spy Who Shagged Me. She was obviously one of the main characters in the first film, but she just has a little cameo in the second one, so she'll get her name brought up for a little bit there. Other female lead in this is Daryl Hannah, obviously from Blade Runner, Splash, and Wall Street. So pretty decent, female leads in this movie for kind of how garbage the movie itself is. Watching it, picked up on a lot more sexual content than I remembered when I watched it the first time so many years ago. Typical Disney fashion, their writers find ways to just put all kinds of weird sexual content that's supposed to go over kids' heads. So it was interesting to catch a lot of that this viewing of the movie. Another side character we've got in here, we've got Wallace Shawn, who plays another one of the people going after the Martian. He's obviously known from stuff like Clueless, that was a couple years earlier, or The Princess Bride, which will get brought up in the third movie we talk about. Actor Wayne Knight from Jurassic Park, he plays the voice of the CGI suit that the Martian has in the movie. His voice is very familiar. I felt bad when I had to look it up because probably 20-30 minutes in, I'm like, I know this voice. I just can't place who it is. So I had to look up that it was Wayne Knight. Really bad CGI though in this movie. It's a very 90s CGI. We haven't gotten to April yet when The Matrix completely changes CGI. Then in May, CGI blows up again with with Star Wars Episode 1. So this movie is definitely on the lower end of the CGI spectrum that goes through many evolutions throughout 1999. And as I said, Ray Walston's in the movie. He will always be Mr. Hand to me. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, written by Cameron Crowe, directed by Andy Heckerling. One of my all-time favorite movies, and Mr. Hand is a huge part of that. So seeing Ray Walston, in other roles is always really cool. All right, so that movie, not really worth your time. Again, it's free on Disney Plus if you got kids. I mean, they'll probably like it. It's got a lot of slapstick, goofy, ridiculous humor, and a talking space suit that gets into some shenanigans throughout the course of the film. Kids today probably would still hold up just because I'm not expecting them to look for like a really intense or serious plot that they need to pay attention to. So it's got a lot of sight gags and a lot of stuff that kids will probably still be into these days. Our second film we're going to talk about, just in time for Valentine's Day. I got my red shiny shirt on because we got Valentine's Day coming up in 2 days. So we got two rom-coms to talk about now. The first one being Blast from the Past. It stars Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone. Brendan Fraser, just huge start to his career before this movie. He went on just a great run of movies in the early 90s. He had Encino Man, School Ties, Airheads, and my personal favorite, one of the best films I think he's done, is With Honors. Him and Joe Pesci, just an amazing film. So we get here to Blast from the Past. It's a decent movie for what it was. He has two other movies in '99 that we're going to talk about. One of them being my favorite role he's ever done of Rick O'Connell in the first Mummy film. That we'll be talking about in May. And then in July or August, I think it is, we will unfortunately have to August, we will unfortunately have to talk about the film Dudley Do Right, which is unfortunately one of the crappier kid-centric movies that I'm not looking forward to watching for this series. In this movie, Fraser plays a guy named Adam, which is important because Alicia Silverstone, her name's Eve in the movie. Yeah, they went that just blatant with it. We're going to put these two characters together because it's Adam and Eve. Alicia Silverstone coming off The Crush, coming off Clueless, really kind of the height of her career, but I don't remember a lot of stuff she did like after this, like the 93 to 99 era is probably what I really remember from Alicia Silverstone. I would have to look up and see stuff she did after this. We've got a couple of cool side characters in this. David Foley plays Alicia Silverstone's roommate. He's usually good. He's usually pretty well typecast and does good at whatever he's put in. So he's got a lot of really good, one-liners and stuff in the movie. Her boyfriend, Alicia Silverstone's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend or on and off again, crazy relationship boyfriend in the movie, played by Nathan Fillion. While I was watching the opening credits, I saw his name pop up and I was like, holy cow, like I had no idea he was in this movie in '99. I wasn't really I'm sure I had seen him in other stuff like Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, but no, that would have been a couple years later, I think. So really didn't know who Nathan Fillion was. So when I saw his name in the credits, it was cool that I was like, oh, I look forward to finding out where he pops up in this movie. This is another one. I had not watched it since 1999 in the theater, never watched it on video or home or anything like that. The other two big characters in this cast, we've got Adam's parents, which are played by Christopher Walken and Sissy Spacek. Really, really cool to see those actors because it's also really cool to watch the makeup when they start the movie in 1962. You got Christopher Walken, who my entire life I've known with solid white gray hair. To see him with dark, brown hair for the beginning of the movie was kind of cool and interesting. I guess he may have had dark hair also in Pulp Fiction, now that I think about it, but I think it still was like a peppered look or whatever. The movie was written and directed by a gentleman named Hugh Wilson. Not a super popular name, but he is also the same guy who was responsible for the very first Police Academy movie. He wrote and directed that one, which is pretty cool. So the plot of the film just deals with Adam's parents in 1962. They're hosting a party. The Cuban Missile Crisis happens, so they kick everybody out of their house and they go into this bomb shelter that Christopher Walken, who's apparently like a super rich guy, he built this bomb shelter underneath their house, which is like huge. It's like massive. I can't remember how big they said it was, but a giant bomb shelter underground. They go underground, and it just, in the 90s plot fashion, a military airplane crashes into their house when they go underground. So they think that a nuclear bomb has been dropped. The bomb shelter locks itself up for 35 years, which gets us to 1997. Movie came out in 99, so I guess the script was probably written in 97. The movie calls it present day. So a little bit of discrepancy there. But again, like I said, it was probably just because the script was actually written in 97. So Adam, in 97, when the bomb shelter finally opened, like Adam grows up underground his entire life. He's watching, reruns of I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners. He's listening to music by Perry Como, Dean Martin, stuff like that. When the bomb shelter finally opens, Dad goes up. He sees, Los Angeles in the 90s, which was a pretty, bad time and era for that city. He immediately goes back down and claims that they've got to stay down there for another 35 years. He calls, people up top mutants. And then, per speed of plot, the father figure goes sick and they don't have the medicine to heal him. So Mom sends Adam up to street level with a list of things to buy. She also sends him with a box of baseball cards. The scriptwriter obviously had an affinity for baseball and baseball cards, which the movie ends up kind of being like a love letter to like the 60s and whatnot. Whoever wrote it, in the way that when I would write a movie now, I would write it about 1999 and I would like embrace all of the stuff like, Pokemon and Pogs and, Furbies and Tickle Me Elmo, like all those things that were like popular in 99 would definitely be in my script. This person, obviously had an affinity for things like baseball cards and stuff like that. Really, probably wrote it about a lot of the stuff that they grew up with at that time in the bomb shelter, kind of probably, they pulled a lot from their life. So when he gets up to the top, he runs into Alicia Silverstone's character through a bunch of 90s misadventures. They end up deciding to work together for 2 weeks so that he can get enough food, supplies, medicine to take back down to the bomb shelter so that he can live there for another 35 years is the plan at that point of the plot. Stuff goes on. Friends fight and argue and bicker. They kind of start growing feelings for each other. The third act of the movie was probably the best part, in my opinion. Once we get to the point where, Adam and Eve fight, and then Eve eventually believes Adam's story about, who he really is. Basically, first of all, Alicia Silverstone's character is pretty garbage in this movie. She's kind of a bitch. She's not well written, in my opinion. She's very like one-dimensional. She stays with a dude that like literally treats her like crap, but every scene, he only pops up in like 2 or 3 scenes, but every scene that he pops up in, you can tell that she's like enamored with this dude that like literally treats her like crap. That was typical 90s. It was before, a lot of changes came with female characters and whatnot. So it was standard of how female characters were written back then that, a dude came around, treated her like crap, and she was, infatuated with the guy. So once Adam and Eve's fight ends up being over and done and, they're back on friendly terms, she comes and, he takes her down into the bomb shelter to meet his parents. And I really liked everything that happened once we got to that point of the movie. I felt like the last third was really fun and enjoyable and was pretty cool. There's really a bizarre subplot to the movie where like this when the bomb shelter opens, it's in a bar that is closed, and there's the guy who owned it, who his mom gave him the bar when it was a restaurant, and he ends up becoming this crazy cult leader of people who worship the people that come out of the bomb shelter. Really bizarre. Of course, they end up being utilized at the in the third act of the movie, but it's really just kind of ridiculous. So yeah, it's a fine movie. It's fun. It's exactly what I expect. It's a nice little time capsule of what 1990s was like, and it's very paint by numbers for the plot and stuff like that. There has to be a misunderstanding so that our two main characters are forced apart for a while. And yeah, so the last film we're going to talk about this week is Message in a Bottle. We have the first Nicholas Sparks film adaptation. It wasn't the first book that he wrote, but it was the first one that they decided to put on film. Here's the thing I'm learning. People really hate Nicholas Sparks. That's right, not people. Critics really hate Nicholas Sparks movies. I'm going to give you the rundown of the Rotten Tomatoes scores for all of Nicholas Sparks' movies. 32%, which is Message in a Bottle. I'm doing these in chronological order. 32% for Message in a Bottle. 27%, 53%, 30%, 29%, 21%, another 21%, 13%, 12%, 31%, and then a low of 11%. So we've got a low of 11% and we have a high of 53%. And guess what? Guess what that high is? It's The Notebook. It's the one that everybody loves by Nicholas Sparks, and critics still only gave it a 53%. So this is crazy. Luckily for Message in a Bottle, the Rotten Tomatoes audience score is a 66%. Definitely closer to where I would put it. Really liked this movie. I've seen it a couple of times over the years. I actually watched it a couple of years ago during COVID. I don't know what. I was probably in one of my 99 moods or something. But yeah, so I watched it recently, and then I watched it again this week just to make sure it was fresh in my head. And I do really like the movie. It's fun and enjoyable, and I think it's a really well acted film. I love the cast. Kevin Costner, who, obviously did Field of Dreams and can do no wrong. I mean, well, let me say that he can't do no wrong, because like Dances with Wolves and The Postman and Waterworld, like he's obviously done some really bad movies. That being said, most stuff that I like Kevin Costner in, I really like Kevin Costner in. Lead female in this, we have Princess Buttercup herself. We have Robin Wright Penn, who apparently now goes by Robin Wright, which makes sense since her and Sean Penn got divorced a long time ago. So Paul Newman is also in this film. He plays Kevin Costner's father, and Paul Newman steals every scene that he's in. The way he acts with Kevin Costner, the character is just phenomenal. There are scenes where Kevin Costner is his character is getting upset and aggressive, and the way Paul Newman talks him down is really cool and well done, because it juxtaposes points in the movie where Paul Newman is by himself and he has those same type of breakdowns where he, gets angry about stuff and slams stuff around. And just to see that, like, that's obviously where, Kevin Costner's character got that from is the familiar relationship that they have is really cool and really well done. And I think Paul Newman nails it every time he's on screen. He's commanding. When he's arguing with people, he makes his points. Really like what Paul Newman did. Obviously, I love The Hustler and Color of Money and stuff like that. Some other supporting characters we've got in this. Princess Buttercup has two main people that hang out with her. The first one being Robbie Coltrane. Robbie Coltrane had just recently done Goldeneye, where he played, I'm going to butcher this name, Valentine Zukovsky. And in 1999, Zukovsky actually comes back. In November, we'll be talking about The World Is Not Enough. So we'll have some more Robbie Coltrane to talk about at that point. Also from Mallrats, we have the three-nippled, what is she, card reader, future seer, Ileana Douglas is in this movie. She plays Robin Wright Friend's bestie. So pretty good supporting cast around her, and like enjoyable characters. Like Robbie Coltrane plays Robin Wright Penn's boss, and he's a dick, but he's not like a real dick. Like he's very confident and motivational to her. So it's nice. Robin Wright and Coltrane get into arguments and discussions and butt heads a lot, but you can still tell that their characters really care about each other, especially near the end of the movie when she is quitting her job and he gives her, a going away present. It's a very hilarious and comical joke present that he gives her, and it just shows the kind of relationship that they've always had. So really cool watching the two of them work together. As far as Nicholas Sparks movies go, I know that absolutely everybody loves The Notebook, and I just don't get it. I find this character, Garrett, whatever his last name is, I find this character far more interesting and enjoyable to watch. The way that this, so obviously, like every Nicholas Sparks movie deals with death. There's always death. Maybe the Notebook's like the only one that doesn't. Like the Notebook has loss of memory as its like third act play. The majority of them deal with death. At some point, somebody in the movie dies, and this movie does a great job. The character's already dead when the movie starts. So this movie is really just all about the grief and how her husband and her family are dealing with her loss. You got characters that are still very much deep in grief and depression, and trying to figure out how they're gonna go on without this main character, the wife, being around. It's far better in my opinion than like Ryan Gosling's character in The Notebook. I don't like him until that third act twist of, oh, here's them ending up together and he's telling her all the stories about because she can't remember them being together. Like the other one that comes to my mind that was right around the time that the second one that came out was A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore and Shane West. And like I hated Shane West's character in that movie. Like, okay, maybe not hate, but I strongly disliked him. He does do some very noble and great things throughout the course of the movie, but he's also just kind of an asshole in the movie. So this character of Nicholas Sparks is probably one of my favorites, and I really, really enjoy the build up to what ends up being a Nicholas Sparks ending. Third act deals with the fact that Robin Wright Penn brings up the fact that there were 3 letters that she has copies of. He tells her that he only ever wrote 2 letters. He gets to read the 3rd letter, which was typed on the same typewriter, which is why everyone thinks it was another one that he wrote. Actually, a letter that his wife wrote to him and threw in the ocean far before he ever wrote the 2 letters that he wrote. So that's really cool. And then like you get this character like coming to terms with the fact that it's time to move on. So he writes his wife an actual 3rd letter that he's going to throw out into the ocean to her. And then, of course, Kevin Costner dies. Sorry, spoiler alert, like the movie's 23 years old. But he dies, and that 4th letter is what Robin Wright Penn reads at the end of the movie, where he tells his wife that he's met somebody else and he's going to move on to her. So, like, boom. I think that is a great narrative story. I like it. I really enjoy it. So yeah, I really dig Message in a Bottle. There's also a small cameo near the end of the film. The Kevin Costner's character's out on a boat, and he runs. It's a storm starts, and he runs across another ship, husband and wife and their little daughter, and it gets capsized, and they're all in the ocean or in the ocean, and he's trying to save them. The little girl in that is our future hero, Hayden Panettiere. So kind of cool. I'm pretty sure it was her first movie that she ever did, but she plays the little girl who is trying to not drown in the water. So that is the 3 movies that came out this week. One that's just blah for kids. One that perfectly fit for teenagers in '99. Not the best script, but still enjoyable enough. And then the first Nicholas Sparks film adaptation, Message in a Bottle, which I personally really enjoy and highly recommend. Even though if you haven't seen it, I already spoiled it for you, so sorry about that. It's still really good acting that you should go watch. Next week, February 19th, 1999, we got 3 films to talk about again. One, the great Jake Gyllenhaal movie, October Sky. Number 2, the amazing Mike Judge comedy, Office Space. And finally, a movie that most people hate, and I just kind of remember it being okay. I don't remember hating it, so it's going to be really interesting to watch it again this week. Jawbreaker, which has a crazy cast, and I remember it being very dark, and I think that's why I liked it then. So we'll see if my humor is still the same, 23 years later. All right, guys, thank you for listening this week, and we will talk to you next week.